Hello everyone, we are live. We're about to get in here. The coach is ready. So tonight is coaching session. Let's go straight into it. I think he's ready here. There we go. Hello.
Good evening, Alan. How
How are
are
you
you?
doing, sir? I'm doing well. How about
Good.
yourself?
Yes, very good, thank you. Very good. How's your week been so far? Not too bad?
Not too
Pretty
bad. Not too
chill?
bad. Can't
Not
complain.
too bad. That's good. You can't complain? Yes, I've seen Summit Point's been treating you very interestingly. Sometimes very good, sometimes a bit touch and go, but that's how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah. Like it's funny because it's the second time that I go there. I have good pace. I have good pace.
Yeah.
But then I'm hostage of my bad decisions and some other people's bad decisions. It's like I think it's part of the
Okay.
learning process. I
Sure.
don't beat
Yeah.
myself too hard.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. It's something you'll find very interestingly now because you're in that stage where it's kind of, you're not slow, but there's still a couple guys that maybe have just that little bit of an edge, and you're kind of in that middle ground. But we're talking about the people that are just slightly above you. We're talking about guys that are like 4K, 5K, people that have second accounts that are trying to bloody grind their I rating up, and they're at like 1,500, and they've got pace of a 5K driver. All the little things like that you're going to be dealing with as you continue going along. And I think it definitely. I think in the next couple of weeks, it would be quite worth our while to try and maybe start having a look into the racecraft situations a little bit, just to open up your perspective for a few things on particular tracks. And I think, people always say to me, like, Johnny, how do you teach racecraft? Because I think teaching racecraft is always quite a tough thing. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we all know how to kind of drive side by side with somebody. I think that's something that you naturally learn, as a racing driver in a way. You understand that kind of that distance that you have between yourself and someone else, for example. But I think the biggest thing that I've found has worked for me in terms of teaching people, and I guess from my own experiences in racing, is actually about more so understanding the situations and how to deal with things in the moment. Because there's been many a time where, I remember this one particular example I had, and it was at Snetterton GP in a Formula 4 car. And I'd been racing the track a couple times throughout the week. I didn't really have anyone to ever battle because it was kind of, it was just kind of like, yeah, I'd be such a fair way ahead of everybody, and I'll just gap the field by the fourth corner, and I'd have a 1 second gap, and that would be the race. I'd just be hot lapping for 20 minutes. But it was kind of a case. There was one race that I accidentally registered on my main account at the time, and it was the one race that I accidentally registered on my main instead of my alt account. That then this 8.5K pro guy that does F4s like all the time joined the race as well. And I was like to myself, oh my god, like this, this couldn't be any worse. I'm on my main, where if I crash or have an incident, I'm going to lose 170, and it'll take me like 2 or 3 months to get it back. And I'm just like, this is the worst possible situation. So it was a case of, I put it on pole. I was holding the lead. I was holding that gap around 4 or 5 tenths. But there's this big long straight at Stenson that leads into like a fast left to right kink almost in a way, and it's kind of one of those corners where you need to be very smart with your positioning, because it's like, your main thought process would be, okay, let me defend coming into this corner, coming off of this straight. But the problem is that if you go defensive into that corner, then it puts you on the outside, depending on if the car that's next to you holds it around the outside, then changes to the inside. So in that moment, I remember that he did get a run on me on a particular lap, and I had to make a split-second decision what I was going to do. I was like, do I either defend it and block the inside, or do I hold the racing line and let him go down the inside? That would then turn to the outside, and I decided to hold the racing line and let him go down the inside, and I would then hold around the outside and keep the inside for the following corner. And I did the case, and yeah, we net coded, and he ended up getting dueled into the grass, and then I ended up winning the race. But it was one of those situations where if I made a wrong choice there, that probably could have been the race done for me. I probably could
Yeah.
have would have come second, and I would have lost I rating in that moment. So the moral of the story here is that in your mind, you kind of need to be able to have situations in your head that you can basically have a split-second reaction to say, oh, I'll do this, and this is the answer I'll get. I'll do that, this is the result I'll get. I'll do this is the answer I get, right? So, let's say, for example, Summit Point. You want to have at least two situations that you can do when you're behind. Either what happens if you go down the inside, what happens if you go around the outside, or vice versa? If you're ahead, what happens if you hold your racing line? What happens if you defend your racing line? And that's a big thing as well, is that a lot of drivers typically can think about the in the moment and the now, but not a lot of drivers think about the future. They don't think about, if I do this, where does it end me up? If I do that, where is it going to position me on the exit of the corner? They don't think far ahead in that sort of sense. And that's sometimes why you see people make decisions and most of the time they don't work out, because they're just thinking about, oh, there's a gap there, I'm going to go for it. But you don't actually know what's going to happen if you go for that gap there. They see a gap and they go for it, and that's it. But they haven't really thought about it. And that's why you see a lot of incidents, because people see a hole, they go for it, and then they get there and they realize this isn't going to work because this corner isn't suited for what I'm trying to do here. And the next minute, that's why they plow into you, and then they cause a 3-car pile up, and then everybody gets taken out and everybody gets angry. You know, that's how racing goes with a lot of these guys. So I think definitely something we'll definitely have to discuss is how to go about it, because I've seen definitely moments in races where in my mind I'm like, we need to defend, we need to defend, we need to defend, we need to defend, and then next minute we hit the brakes and the guy's down the inside, and then they collide into you, and then there's a crash, right? So, you know, it's the moments like that where even though you think you're very safe, you're never safe with these guys. Like, it feels like you can just become a bowling pin at any moment, even if you have a 5/10 gap to a car behind. So, yeah, definitely something we're going to have to definitely look at for sure, and enlighten you a little bit on situations and, you know, and how to deal with them in the moment, so that you can just literally say, okay, this is where I'm at. You can click your fingers and you have an answer, and you do that answer in a way. But is that something that you feel probably is something that you would really sort of need? Do you feel like you ever run through situations of like, okay, this is what happens if I do this or do that, or if I'm defending, if I do this or do that, I'll get this answer? Is that something that you've ever really considered before, I suppose?
Yeah, like I would split this into two parts. So there is the
Yeah.
defending and the attacking. I feel
Yeah.
like when I'm defending, which I've done a
Yeah.
lot, um, I feel more confident in my decisions. So I kind of
Yes.
look at the cars, what they're doing. So yesterday I was in a race, and the guy was like defending super aggressively. So I knew like whenever I would overtake him, it would have to be
Yeah.
a super clean overtake. So it's preparing the
Mhm.
overtake, and I did overtake him super cleanly, and then like
Mhm.
he still managed to take me out of the race, or like at least spin me, and I finished P5. But I knew, like, I also knew the risk I was incurring when I made the decision to go on the inside, and I was getting close to the end, so I thought it was the right decision. So when I'm
Yeah.
defending, I'm kind of like thinking through. One of the things that I'm avoiding doing at all cost is going on the outside line in turn one, because when something happens, usually happens in the inside and takes everybody on the outside out. So I'd rather
Yeah.
be on the inside and try to avoid that from the beginning. It gives me a bad
Sure.
exit on turn
Yeah.
one. Sometimes I lose the position, but it's better to lose the race than to
Yeah.
lose the race. So that I feel pretty
Yeah.
confident, even though like sometimes I don't make the best decision. And also there are
Yeah.
times that I know like the door is open,
Yeah.
but like I'm trying to think like one or two corners ahead, right? Like this guy's gonna have the inside here. He's gonna dive. It doesn't matter what I do. He's gonna be stupid. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how can I save myself this corner and let him do whatever he wants to do, and then try
Yeah.
to take it back in like a clean way
Mhm.
after this corner? And that's the second
Mhm.
part that sometimes, that a lot of times,
Mhm.
I still haven't like developed the muscle yet. So
Mhm.
I don't feel
Yeah.
I don't want to do like I don't want to go for bomb dives. Like I just don't like
Yeah. Of course.
going
Yes.
super late on the brakes and using their car so to turn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
sometimes I go on the inside and I hit the brakes hard, and then I realize I went
Yeah.
on the brakes too early, and I just don't
Yeah.
have enough speed, so I'm tucked
Yeah.
in back again.
Yeah.
So these are the
Yeah.
things. Just like one example, I had a race. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. There was this guy. We went door to door in a previous race,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
crashed into me. Like I still don't understand why,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
but he crashed into me,
Yeah.
and then like
Yeah.
okay, race is gone. I finished last.
Okay.
And then the next
Yeah.
race, we're both again in the same. We're in the same split, and he
Yeah.
was like a 3.5K or something, and he did
Okay.
the fastest lap. I was
Okay.
P2, and I
Yeah.
was like, I want to stay. So two things: I want to stay behind him all the way close to
Yeah.
the end, and then I want to try to
Yeah.
overtake at the end
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
don't want him to be behind me because I know he's aggressive.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I did
Yeah.
have the chance to overtake, like for 2 or 3 laps. I had a chance to
Yeah.
overtake him. We're at the same
Yeah.
pace, but I
Mm.
wasn't confident enough to make the move and like to
Yeah.
hold the
Sure.
P1 later. So I still
Yeah.
waited for the last like lap. And what happened? The last lap, I was very close behind him, and then I made a silly mistake. It was like the second to last lap. I made a silly
Yeah.
mistake getting on like the last corner.
Yeah.
That's when he opened like enough of a gap that I couldn't go for an overtake anymore, and he just
Yeah.
carried the gap towards the end, and I finished P2. It wasn't a bad race,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
if I felt more confident when I could have overtaken him, even though I was trying to stay
Yeah.
behind, maybe I'll just like
Yes.
try to overtake there and increase the gap because I
Yeah.
was faster.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. One thing I will say with this car is, in my opinion, it's probably one of the hardest cars that I've ever driven before to actually dive bomb into a corner. Just for the fact that the brake performance is so bad, almost in a way. And when you brake more in this car, it slows down less because obviously when you get that ABS kicking in as you brake harder, the thing wants to not slow down. And that's the kind of case is that yeah, whenever you try to brake harder and more aggressively, you get to the ABS, you feel like the front end just kind of loses all bite, and you just feel like then you just go straight, like you've gone onto ice almost in a way, and you just go straight into someone else, and that's when you then cause an incident. So it's very hard to kind of dive bomb somebody almost in a way, and I was watching you. I know what race you were talking about. It was that race there. I think it was with Jason. Was it with Jason
Yeah,
Betts or whatever it was when he was 100 ahead of you? Yeah. It was the end of your stream last night. I was watching it, and I know what you mean. I was a couple moments there that I was like, you're close enough, but you're not at the same time. Like it's there, but it's like it's very risky. It's very very risky because again, it's just a case of to pull off the move, you've got to be basically, yeah, dive bombing. But again, if the car's going to stop, that's a different question. But it was almost the case of you were close in all the wrong areas, almost in a way. You were close in the spots where it was hard to make a pass, and then we were maybe just a little bit too far back in the spots where you could try and make a pass. Like I mean, realistically, Summit Point, for example, if you think about, I mean, where are the main passing spots? I mean, realistically, if you're on the same pace, T1 is probably only your realistic chance, maybe coming into turn 3 if you're able to set them up well. But T1 realistically is your only spot to pass. You're probably not going to pass into the T5 hairpin. There's just no bloody room there. In all honesty, it'd be quite hard to try and fit a gap into there. So it's no Formula One dive bomb down the inside Daniel Ricciardo spec in these cars. It definitely doesn't give you the same entitlement to feel like you can do that. But again, it's good when you have a big overspeed on somebody and you have a lot of pace on behind you, which is I'm sure what you're feeling, more commonly than ever now. But it's when you get into those situations when you are with someone like him, and you are racing on a very similar pace. And I think that account I think is the second account. I think potentially I think he has another one that he races on that's higher than that. But he is a quality driver from what I've seen. He does a lot of GT3s, I think as well. That guy that you were racing with. So he's good at what he does. So these guys are very aggressive as well. But you just got to be aggressive back in a way. But you got to know how to be clean aggressive almost in a way as well. But some guys don't know how to be clean aggressive, and that's the problem. That's why iRacing is full of interesting characters on here. But nonetheless, I think yeah, definitely something to look into. I'm looking forward to going over the racecraft stuff with you because I think when I watched your driving, I'm like, okay, the speed looks really really good. It's just the fundamentals of racecraft that we got to kind of build into, and every car has its own little sort of particular racecraft situations because again sometimes the braking works, the braking performance works a bit different, the way that the car reacts works a little bit different, the grip you might have when you're side by side with someone works a little bit different, and I think it always makes it super hard in this M2 just because of how snappy the rear can be. And again, at the end of the day, majority of these corners we're trying to keep it in third, but the truth of the matter is that if you're trying to make a pass, to try and keep it in third actually becomes quite tough to do, almost in a way.
yes.
So, I think it's an interesting concept. But in a lot of cars that actually more tin top cars, I should say, like GT3s, GT4s, as you start to learn into the future, you'll find that it's actually a lot. It gives you a lot more confidence to try and bomb someone from a little bit far back, or hold it around the outside somewhere. It gives you a little bit more entitlement. Whereas this car, if you ever bumming it down below third gear and you try to pick up the power and go up a gear, the thing's just going to snap away on you. So it's definitely a different vibe to obviously the GT cars that you can kind of drive, but that's the biggest thing. But nonetheless, I think, yeah, no, keep working away at some point this week. I mean, from what I've seen, the pace looks really, really strong. Um, it's always that annoying part when you're around this 3k pointer now, where it's kind of like you have one crappy race, you lose a little bit, but then you do like two good ones, and then you're basically back at the exact same spot. But you just got to kind of get those races in, and again, it's about playing it safe too. I mean, at the end of the day, if you notice that somebody is aggressive, like in that situation, and you say, you know what, I'm still gaining probably 30, 35 I rating for finishing second. If you just finish second, you know what I mean? I'm probably going to get like 42, 43 for winning the race. So, you know what? I'm risking everything for basically 8 more I rating, which I can get triple the amount if I just get another good result next race. You know, so it's just one of those things you got to kind of think of the gain versus loss almost. But yeah, look, nonetheless, Lime Rock Park. How do you feel with this joint? Because it's obviously somewhere we've never looked at before, somewhere that's very kind of easy to get right, but very easy to get wrong as well. But very easy to lose time in the most minimal way. So I mean, how are you finding it initially? Because it's a new place that we've never talked about before.
Yeah, so it's a track that I like, which helps.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like most tracks actually, but like it's a track that I
Yeah.
like. It's a
Okay.
track that I think it puts to test what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of like opportunities. If you have a bad exit, you're done. You're done for the lap, because
Yes.
you
Sure.
carry
Sure.
so much speed like almost everywhere. And
Yeah.
I was able to get like right at 0.5% of your pace. I just did
Yeah.
like one
That's super
session,
good.
which was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I was able like towards the end to get consistently there. So I feel confident. I feel like there's still a lot
Yeah.
to improve.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
I didn't watch your lap. I just tried to like problem solve myself. I'm pushing myself more in that
Exactly.
direction of like, let me try to get as close as possible before I watch like what he's doing. And I didn't even see
Yes.
like VRS how we're comparing against each other.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Amazing.
but I
Super.
think I think I know what I have to do. So my
Yeah.
optimal lap is
Yeah.
like on pair with your fastest lap or with your like
Okay.
reference lap, which is good. Like I
Yes.
can I can do
Yeah.
the things you're doing.
Fantastic.
I just cannot put them
Yes.
together, right?
Yeah.
But
Sure. Sure.
I think we're very
Yeah.
close. I think we're very close to
Mhm.
getting to the point that I
Mhm.
can improve and be consistently
Yeah.
better there. And I like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
rotation thing as well, helps like a lot in some of the
Yeah.
corners.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I suppose the big question I have for you, from obviously where we were last week, um, how uh, how did you go with obviously everything we talked about, where obviously we were talking about last week, instead of using the two tires, we were obviously using the four tires. Were you able to feel that difference after you went away and worked on things a little bit there? Did you feel that difference, and has it been applied for you, or has it been still just trying to figure out what that feeling kind of feels like, I suppose, in a way?
No, like I already feel it. I already know how to do it. What I'm
Yeah.
working on right now is doing to the level that I want. Meaning,
Okay.
sometimes I overdo it and I lose the car because I oversteer too much
Yeah.
and I lost the car. But like I've been trying to force this behavior, not force, like trying to implement this
Hmm.
behavior
Hmm.
of dropping the
Hmm.
brakes a little bit faster to create a rotation.
Yes. Yes, correct, correct. And that's almost a little bit what I can see is going on in a way around here at Lime Rock. And I think that's probably a big topic of conversation here for us today, is just discussing those little differences, because at the end of the day, like, we are talking about, you know, a 300ths of a second or half a tenth, or a little bit over a tenth. But realistically, when you look at every single sector and you look at what we're doing, it doesn't actually look like we're doing anything differently, really, in a way. I mean, obviously there is a little bit of difference, but structurally wise, approach wise, we're doing the exact same thing in a way, which is obviously amazing to sort of see. But there's just the little sort of things now with what you're trying to build there, that you can see probably you're trying in the same approach, which is giving you the lap time. But it's more so the case of, how do we refine that just a little bit more to actually make that result still almost happen, but still allow you to kind of carry all the little bit of extra minimum speed areas that you need through this part or that part, and all the little things like that. So it's a very interesting thing to look at, but I'm glad that you're feeling that a little bit and you're able to sort of apply that a little bit. Of course, it's a super hard concept to understand and to feel when, again, we just don't have as much feeling as we want in these simulators as what you would have in a real life car. So to feel that full direct difference can sometimes be tough, and to know how to completely get that answer just from literally, driving the car differently or dropping the brake, like you said, can be definitely quite tough to feel. But it's just one of those things that you start to sort of get used to almost in a way. And you start to apply it in that sort of sense too. So no, look, really good to hear that. Yeah, this week, I mean, you've gotten to this point based on your knowledge, which I think is really, really good, and that's something that we've been talking about, really trying to grow. And I think this is a good track forward because again, it's not super big, it's not super long, not crazy technical. It can it can give you a good opportunity just to see, okay, with the values and the approaches that I have already, what can I kind of do and how can I do them to just get that result? And it seems like you did a very good job of getting to that sort of point of this week. Now, I think the big thing overall that probably I found in I guess the main sort of parts of the track, which are obviously basically the exit of, well, T1 and then obviously to the exit of T2 to 3 and then through 4 and then obviously leading up to the chicane through T5 and then of course you have your last two corners. Um, the one thing that I kind of noticed that really is making us have these little differences of, through 3 and 4, we have 0.065, through 5, through T1 and 2, we have 0.031. Realistically, between those four corners, we only do have a gap of point oh 0.09, so less than a tenth of a second is the difference. But like you kind of said before, it's very much a case of it's those little differences that can make that big difference in a lap. It's those little changes that you can make that, especially at somewhere like this where it kind of is all about the exits you get out of the corners, all the straight line speed that you can kind of have, all the minimum speed you can have. It's the little differences that can make the biggest ones, I suppose, in a way. So what I noticed in comparison between me to you, and again, this relates all back to, I think, what we started talking about previously last week, where you feel like you're obviously trying to clear the brakes a lot quicker than I am, just to obviously get that kind of feeling of that car rotating around. And I mean, straight away I saw you went after our lesson last week and you went and tried that on the track. Were you able to feel that difference a lot more when you were dropping the pedal? Did you feel like you could feel the car just kind of laterally load a little bit better and you were getting a bit more of just a bit more of a slide coming through the entry and it would rotate as well, I think is the biggest thing?
Yes, yes, yes. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
immediately, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think what the kind of case is going on here now is that you're doing that, and you're doing that very, very well. And I think you can see that because of how close we are, you're doing it very well. Now, the problem is that you're doing it all correctly, structurally wise, application wise, it's all really, really good. I think it's just the amount of pressure that we're putting in certain situations is what's being the biggest difference. Because at the end of the day, the result that you're getting is probably very similar to mine. The reaction you're getting is probably basically exactly the same as mine. It's just that the period that you go through compared to the period that I go through, there's just certain parts of that period where I'm going a little bit faster than you are, or I'm carrying just a little bit more minimum speed than you are through certain sections, and that just allows me to get that little bit of an extra edge over you, right? So for example, you can see coming into turn 3 and 4, so this is after turn 1, so as you go through the long right of turn 1 and then you open up into the left right kink of 3 and 4, you can kind of see the difference here, right? So you can see you pick up the brake a little bit later, you peak about 13-14% harder than I do coming into turn 3 there. Of course, because you brake a little bit harder, you can clear the brake. You probably feel like you get a little bit of neutral steer. The car tries to kind of rotate around on you. You can trail the brake in, and then you can pick up the power very aggressively and go to full throttle, and there's your exit, right? But the problem is when you look at the speed trap, right? Okay, so coming in through T1, you can see the difference is that, as you'll see, the very similar situation lies here, what we're doing, right? So you can see you broke at the same point, you broke just a little bit harder because you broke a little bit harder, washed off a little bit too much speed, you could clear the brake a little bit quicker, and you end up in that sort of same situation, right? But the problem is through corners like this, and even through corners like this, when this moment happens right here, obviously naturally you've broken later. So you're going to be going faster from basically this period onwards, right? As you can see there, you're going quicker. As you peak the brake, naturally that speed falls away from you, right? A little bit. It kind of plays a little bit in the middle. It falls away from you, then it regains back to you because obviously you drop the brake a lot more aggressively because you washed off to a lot more speed here. So you can drop the brake more aggressively. You get that speed back. Obviously, it enables you to get on the power very early, but the problem is that I'm already on the power way earlier than you are, so I'm gaining that speed back. So what kind of happens is that now we just kind of play with this war of like, I'm faster, you're slower, you're faster, I'm slower, right? We just play this kind of, seesaw game where it's like one side down, one side up, one side down, one side up, and that's basically where we have a value that equals to about 0.065. Is just basically that this time, as you can see on the left here, goes from me being faster by 300ths of a second, then it goes to you gaining all that sort of time back and you being faster by 300ths of a second. Then it obviously makes me go faster by 300ths of a second, 400ths of a second, 500ths of a second, 600ths of a second, 700ths, and that's where that time goes, right? So what's kind of going on is I'm going slower in, slower mid, faster out. You're going faster in, faster mid, slower out, right? But the application of what you're doing is correct. Just the kind of the way that we just got to change the pressure and change that kind of percentage that we're kind of using in a way is probably what's making the biggest difference for us, right? So ultimately, structurally, application wise, perfect. We just need to kind of drop the pressure down in a little bit these certain areas. But this is where we're talking about really fine-tuned areas in terms of T1 to T4 basically, is that the littlest of differences in terms of even here, like 1 and 2, you can see it's even closer. It's only 0.031. But that only 0.31 is disappearing because you had about 4 or 5% harder pressure initially, meaning that then you could drop the brake quicker, meaning that obviously you could trail obviously softer in that middle part, meaning you would speed the car up, right? Then as you get to the exit, you've got to pick up the power a little bit later than I do. And because of that, just on the exit, I gain a little bit more momentum than you do, right? So can you see that trend a little bit that's going on in those sort of two sections there alone? Do you understand what I'm sort of trying to get at there?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. So very, very small, very, very small difference there. And I think even for me, just to kind of help me out, I suppose with what I've been sort of doing as well with everything, and just even trying to just fine tune myself even more is I actually did I did re-download caps and I was just been using that again, so that's been really handy for me just to kind of give me even a little bit more fine tunement on the pedals, because obviously you can see, like, you remember it from your sort of experience with caps. Of course, whenever you turn it on like this, of course you can see it like that, right? And you've got your
Yeah.
values on your screen, which in these situations is super helpful. The day I wish iRacing would come out with like inputs on their stuff, they could easily do it, but I don't know why they haven't gone about it. But having those input values there to be able to see, okay, what's the exact number that I'm actually getting to in the braking zone is super, super, super helpful. For me, yeah, most of the time whenever I hit the brakes, it's always around that 50%. But as we know so well, 4, 5, 6% can be so, so, so sensitive with these cars, and just with any car really, that if you do have that little bit of a difference, if you're looking for that last 2, 3, 400ths of a second, that's where it's lingering basically in a way, is in those little differences like that, right? So that's really the biggest thing I found. Bar obviously then we'll look at the back of the lap, and there's just a little bit of kind of braking points and stuff as well that we can adjust just to get a little bit more out of it, mainly through the chicane. But yeah, I mean, are you feeling, I suppose, when you are driving, maybe you kind of do get a sense of, oh, okay, maybe I just need to hold the brake maybe a little bit longer through the apex. Maybe I'm just clearing the initial brake maybe a little bit too soon. Is that a feeling that maybe you felt either here or at Summit Point, so far through the week, or has it been relatively pretty decent for you all around?
Yeah, no, it's like it's lap after lap, right? So when I'm trying to get
Yeah,
faster and I'm trying to
yeah,
problem solve, one of the things that I
yeah,
look for is, am I getting my slowest like speed at the right place,
mm,
right? Or
mm-hmm,
am I having
mm-hmm,
to go? So for example, I know this right-hander, I'm
mm-hmm.
supposed to trail brake at least until like halfway of that
Yeah,
corner, and then as I
yeah,
point to
exactly.
the exit, that's when I'm supposed to go on the
Yeah,
gas. So
yeah,
sometimes, like when I was problem solving this one, sometimes I would be
yeah,
on the gas at the first like apex, like that's too early, so I was too
yeah,
hard on the
yeah,
brakes, and then the next
yeah,
lap I do
yeah,
something different until I find the balance. And this is a tricky
yeah.
one because it's kind of the corner wants to kind of push you out of the track if
Yeah,
you don't do it
yeah,
well.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
yeah, totally. Yeah, okay, no, for sure. So, I think the way you got to kind of look out for little stuff like this is just like if you feel, yeah, like you said, where are you getting your minimum speeds? I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at the sort of telemetry there and you see where it is, you're always getting your minimum speeds at the end of the corner, right? You're always getting it right at the end of the corner rather than getting your minimum speeds in the middle of the corner where it should sort of be, right? So for example, let's just look at it in the replay. You're getting your minimum speed here, right? Whereas I'm getting my minimum speed about here, right? So you're getting your minimum speed quite a lot later. You're carrying the speed pretty much from from here all the way up until about here. This is where you get your minimum, right? Whereas as I come into this corner, I'm getting my minimum right about now. Just before I reapply the power, so just about here, that's my minimum speed, pretty much in a way, right? This is where it would sort of be. Same thing with this corner over here. So I'd be coming in, trailing, and I'd be getting my minimum speed just about there. That'd be where I'm getting my minimum speed, just before I get onto the throttle, right? So when we compare those two to obviously each other here now, right? You can see that in comparison, my min speed is right here, well, probably around, yeah, so actually it's probably even earlier, to be honest with you. It's probably around right here is where my minimum speed is. So really, really early in the piece, my minimum speed is. And then obviously coming through 3 and 4, my minimum speed is basically right about there. So for 3 and 4, I had it pretty much on the point. But for you, your minimum speed comes pretty much almost around here, right? So your minimum speed comes there. This is where your minimum speed is. As you're about to exit the corner, that's where your slowest point is. Both there and both at probably T1, I'd say be very similar. You get your minimum speed coming in probably about, actually, yeah, probably around there. That's where you go the slowest point. So you get your minimum speed, like I said, probably around here, somewhere around here, you get your minimum speed, right? So that's the big thing that we got to kind of look out for is that you're probably getting your min speeds a lot later, mainly for the fact that you're carrying a lot more speed into the corner and throughout the corner, whereas I'm focusing more on washing more speed at the beginning of the corner, having a minimum speed early, so that then I can punch out more aggressively, right? And that's what you got to kind of think about. So it's it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Very, very minute little areas to look at. I think that's the biggest thing to understand here is that it's super, super small. I mean, you know, it's 0.031 and 0.065, less than a tenth between four corners. Like we're talking about a click of the finger almost in a way, if even that, the differences between you and I through these sections. But the concept behind it can, okay, make probably a smaller difference here, but make a really, really big difference somewhere else, right? And that's really the sort of biggest thing to understand. So my suggestion would be, um, just try and bring the initial pressure down and feel like you carry the brake for a little bit longer. So you can see for me, like my peak pressure into here is 27, and you can see that, yeah, I linger the pedal for a little bit longer, right? Whereas you initially get to 40, 40, 41, 40, yeah, about 40% you get to, and then pretty much instantly you're on the trail, right? So you go from hitting 40 straight down to in the next like 10, 15 meters, you go down to 31, right? Whereas I start at 27 and in the next 10, 15 meters, I go to about 26, right? So my distance of holding pressure is a lot longer, but naturally that just comes down to the case of braking softer, doesn't it? And that's really the biggest thing to kind of understand here. So does that concept make sense to you? Do you see that little minor difference? Not big, but just a little bit of a minor fundamental tweak. I think that will ever so slightly help you out. So does that make sense a little bit in terms of that area?
It does. It does.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, this is really what it sort of starts to come down to, I think, bro, is that like, you start to look at these really, really small areas. Do they make a big difference in this car? No, not really. Does it make a big difference when you do move forward to cars like GT4s, GT3s? Absolutely, because the biggest thing is that all these corners you're coming into in the future in a bigger, more heavier, more faster car is that you're gonna be having to get used to holding the brake for a lot longer of a period. So what little things like this help you with is always thinking about that concept we've learned so much about braking earlier, braking softer, not getting into the ABS and being almost as far away as it was from as far away as we possibly can, and that's where the speed is obviously going to come from. So I think it comes into another sort of section of practicing as well. When I suppose, we're starting to learn our process. You're learning your way that you like to go about learning your laps and getting faster. Obviously you're testing out your braking markers, testing out your limits, seeing how far you can go, etc., etc., etc. But I think one of the biggest and most important things that you can kind of, focus on and work on, I think more so than anything, is just understanding, well, how do I then, okay, bring my braking marker back, for example, and how do I bring my braking pressure down as far as I can, because I think realistically the biggest thing is that, between each other here, there is, well, in the sort of in the second corner or the third corner, I should say, it's about 13%, but then through the first corner, it's 5%, right? So it's barely even anything. But the difference is like I've gone through the process of testing that over my time. I've done the BMW M2 around Lime Rock, for years. Since it came out, it's always been at Lime Rock Park here. So, obviously I've gone through that process of building that knowledge. But I think it's the biggest thing is now that you kind of have almost markers almost in a way, because yeah, you are pretty much, through one, you're pretty much identical to me. In turn two, at turn three, we can have a look here. But I think at the end of the day, even if you have your markers there and you bring the pressure down, you're probably going to realize that then the car doesn't even stop. So then your action is, okay, well, the car doesn't slow down braking at this pressure. Let me try and bring it back and see if it then stops. And then you realize, oh, okay, it stops. But I think an area of practice that I think might actually be super handy to maybe addition in, if it isn't already, is actually trying to, okay, first of all, find your markers, find your braking points, and see how it feels. But actually go through a process of seeing how little you can carry your brake almost through the corner in a sense of how soft initial pressure can you go to where, obviously, like we've discussed here today, you can hold the brake and then of course trail off and of course do your corner. How little initial pressure can you go? Because realistically, if you try to do what we're discussing here at braking at 40%, it's not going to work. You're going to feel like you're rolling at the corner, right? So then your idea is that, okay, well, the reason why that I'm going at 40% and trailing off is because if I go 40% and hold, I slow the car down too much. So try and test and try and experiment with how soft you can go to the point that you can then hold the brake in position and allow yourself to, obviously then allow yourself to maximize the corner by braking and holding, right? So is that an area that maybe you've had an addition in your testing? Have you felt like once you learn the corner, are you trying to maybe see how far back you can bring the pressure? Is that something you've started to addition in, or maybe something that you haven't really thought about, quite aggressively up until this point now, maybe?
No, it is. It's definitely something like playing with the
Mm.
pressure and like the
Yeah, sure.
braking marker. Like this corner is
Yeah,
an interesting one
yeah,
because I was braking earlier. Maybe I was
yeah,
like not maybe. I was definitely braking harder than I should because I was feeling
yes,
I
yes,
was over slowing down too much
yeah,
to the point that I was
sure.
like I
Yeah,
was hitting the throttle even before like getting to the curb, and I was like, no, that's too early.
yeah,
Like I have to carry
yeah,
more speed. So I was trying to
yeah,
go deeper, and this
yeah,
like peak and release that gives me the
yeah.
rotation that I was looking for, right?
For sure, for sure. Yeah. No, exactly. No, I understand that completely. And that's the thing, right? I mean, that it's that close. We're talking about half a tenth, just over half a tenth of a second through here. It's barely even visible, almost in a sense. It's barely even visible. When you look at the delta and you see 0.05 disappear from you, you don't even notice it, right? It happens so quickly. But again, when you're looking for all those little bits of fine-tuned at a time, it definitely can add up. But at the end of the day as well, like, realistically, where more of the time is lying is obviously through the chicane. That's an area that we'll have to have a look at here. And that's obviously where majority of your time is, dissipating almost in a way. But still, it is still, realistically through here, there is still 600ths of a second. And I guess the answer is to where that is going is through what obviously we've just discussed here, is that it's a fact of, you're probably still peaking and trailing off to get that full wheel slide that we're asking for, but you can get the exact same feeling just by braking softer and just carrying the brake in a little bit more initially. And then, of course, you can still release the pedal and still get that rotation that you're looking for. The only problem that obviously I find with maybe the way that you're going about it, because at the end of the day, it works. It does work. I mean, you're getting the time out of it, and that's the biggest thing. It does work. It's just more so the case of depending on how aggressively either you peak or how aggressively then of course you trail off, it can really unstabilize the car in certain situations, especially in this BMW, where you feel like it's in times you always feel like it kind of is a bit of a front wheel drive almost in a way, but yeah, it's definitely a rear wheel drive in this car for sure. But I think it's it's more so a case of just as we know, this car gets very snappy. So if you switch the balance around too aggressively in this car by obviously for example, getting to X percentage, then obviously trailing off, you can really unstabilize this car quite a lot if you do that all too sensitively and too aggressively and at the wrong point more so. That's something that you can just basically run into. So the way that I kind of discuss here, again, your way of doing it probably isn't going to hurt you that many times. It's not going to kind of have that happen too often depending on how you go about it. But my way of going about it, where I maybe go softer, hold the pressure in, you can still see I still have that removal phase. I still have that trail off phase where I'm going to get that rotation by dropping off the brake. I still get that feeling. It's just at the initial part, I balance it out a little bit more. Obviously, I carry the speed in a little bit differently as well, but it gives me a lot more stability as well with that rotation I'm looking for. But it gives me a lot more confidence to do it at speed, almost in a way as well, and that's the biggest thing. So, look, minor little thing, big adjustment. It'll definitely be interesting to sort of see what you think about it, but I think it's more so just a case of, when we're looking for that last little bit of time and just to expand on probably what we talked about from last week in terms of the whole, using 4 wheels instead of 2 wheels, this is going to be a really big development for you in a way to give you just that little bit more time that almost you're looking for in comparison to what we're looking at right here. So yeah, did you have any questions with that? Is there anywhere that you kind of were slightly confused about it, or do you understand that kind of approach that we're looking for there?
No, it's clear to me. Like the question that I have for you is,
Mm.
do we should we always be like using the 4 wheels like in creating this rotation, or like are there some corners that actually the right way of going around the corners just using the front wheels?
Um, yeah, no, look, I think a majority of cases you definitely want to be using the 4, right? I think it's for a lot of these kind of, long-winded corners where you're really kind of, loading up a particular side of the car for a really long period of time. Obviously, it just allows you to get that kind of rotation. I mean, the only cases really that I'd probably say you'd maybe want to be using the 2 wheels maybe a little bit more for tracks that I think will probably come to potentially later in the season. Somewhere like Navarra, for example. I don't know if you've ever driven around there before, but there's a very kind of tight hairpin going into turn one almost in a way. And if you're trying to kind of 4 wheel slide the car through there, you actually by the time you get to the corner, because it's like a double right kink almost in a way, a little bit like Winton almost in a way, I think is a good example. A bit like Winton, that kind of 5, 6, 7 corner there where you kind of go through the left and then you're into the right and then into the next right. When you've got a really, really super tight hairpin where it's like, a really, really tightly radius sort of hairpin where you're really having to get the nose turned around the corner, initially, yeah, you can use 4 wheels to get it kind of positioned where you kind of want it to. But in the end, you kind of only want to really be using the front and loading up the front nose to kind of get the car to actually tip in. Because at the end of the day, if you are just loading up and you're really sort of using all 4 wheels too aggressively, when you actually go to turn in, you can actually be loading up that rear of the car too much, where it actually then you turn it in and the thing just spins around on you. I've had that so many times happen to me where I'm just consistently loading up the rear and trying to get it to rotate for a really, really long period coming into the sort of particular corner I'm dealing with, that then the car actually gets quite loose. So I think, yeah, no, that's definitely a good question. And I think, yeah, the answer is probably a good 95% of the time, absolutely use your 4 wheels. But there are particular corners, and I'll make sure that if there is any that come around in the future, I'll definitely let you know. But at a track like this, we're wanting to use pretty much 4 wheels everywhere. There's no corner here that you're basically trying to use two. You're pretty much trying to use the 4 wheels to get the car to mechanically rotate and to get it kind of to pitch into the apex, and that's what you're kind of wanting. Whereas if you're trying to load the nose up into a lot of these corners, right, you're just going to feel like you're going to just cause yourself a major amount of understeer basically everywhere that you go. So yeah, no, that's a good question. But no, definitely it's a case. It's definitely a case. It's just very, very unique situations and unique type of corners that don't come around, fortunately, too often. But it's the really, really tight, like hairpins that you deal with a lot of tracks where you're trying to like dive it down to the curb, get it around the apex, and then power out. Those are probably the corners that you're dealing with. So I mean, think back to Winton, right? Think back to Winton. I mean, you remember that corner there, that little right-hander. Of course, we hadn't discussed this topic yet, but you kind of remember coming to that corner. Initially, you broke. You kind of would feel like the car was trying to fight you almost in a way, but it would guide you in, but then you would feel like you'd make that really big adjustment on the steering wheel to tip you into the apex, right? To get that front nose into the corner. Do you remember that kind of feeling that you were getting with the BMW around there?
Yeah, it was a turn one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you felt that. That's kind of the difference that you're looking for. A corners like these, for example, you're consistently feeling the car like sliding all the way through the corner, right? You just feel like you're on a kind of tightrope all the way around the corner, and then obviously you pick up the power and it drives out. Those corners, you initially get that four-wheel slide, but in the end, it eventually turns into two when you actually have to dive it into the apex and get it down to the sort of main part of the corner, and obviously then you can power out. So yeah, definitely a little bit of different feelings, but as you kind of start to get used to the difference between using, you know how two wheels are felt, but now you're getting used to how using four wheels feel. There's definitely certain situations you can use it. But yeah, if there ever is a moment, I'll definitely be sure to let you know where that is. But yeah, for here, we're not really dealing with any real moments like that. But no, a really good question to ask. In all honesty, that's a very important concept to kind of understand. So, yeah, look, other than that, I think all really really good. So, look, braking markers here, I think, nonetheless, through one, you had it pretty much on the point. I don't think you really could have done it any better. I think, yeah, for me, I'm braking just at the floorboard, realistically. So just as I cross the floorboard, that's really where I'm wanting to brake. Um, and then, yeah, obviously, like we said, hit our peak, obviously trailing it in, getting to the outside here, squeezing back on the power, and off we kind of go. Now through three, again, this is always quite a tough one to figure out where a braking marker is because it's kind of like there's nothing, there's nothing to really look at almost in a way. But I always just like to sort of choose like when the track sort of starts to dip away from you a little bit. So you can see that obviously we have a bit of kind of camber, a bit of elevation sort of going on through this sort of corner here. In the steering wheel, you can kind of almost feel a little bit when the track starts to dip away from you a little bit. That's usually where I like to hit the brakes. But once again, it's kind of the case of if you hit the brakes and you brake softly, like we're discussing here, instead of braking more aggressively, if you brake hard and obviously sorry, and brake at the spot you are, and the thing doesn't make the apex, then that's your answer there, right? You're like, okay, well clearly the car doesn't stop with what I'm wanting to try and do. So naturally you just say, oh, okay, well I need to bring my braking zone back. So it's a bit more of a feeling type of corner here rather than having a proper marker. And you just kind of get used to it as you go almost in a way. But somewhere you could potentially use is just as the kind of concrete extends out instead of having grass here, just on the edge of the white line there. So just as basically that little part starts right there, that's pretty much where you can say, oh, that's where I'm braking if you want a marker. So just as that little kind of side sort of concrete area opens up there, bam, just hit the brakes. So yeah, if you need a marker, you could probably use that. But once again, I think naturally just bringing the pressure down wherever you're braking, if you feel like it doesn't obviously turn and rotate for you in the way you want to, then obviously, yeah, it's probably just braking too late. So that's one to keep in mind. Now, yeah, look, once you power out, obviously getting to the inside here, opening up as much as you can. Of course, having to crack the throttle a little bit through the right there, so you had that all really quite good. There was no complaints about that right hand there. You did it all relatively quite well. Obviously you probably lifted a little bit more than me, just based on potentially how much speed you were carrying in comparison to one another. So it just allowed you to get on the power a little bit more aggressively as well. So in the end, we ended up at the same spot there or thereabouts coming into the back straight, so that's no issue. Now the chicane. So the chicane is definitely a spot where I think learning that kind of feeling of using the four wheels has probably really helped you out quite a lot, because this corner you never really want to feel like you're having to sort of drive into the apex. You kind of always feel like you're just being kind of guided into the apex almost in a way. So when you hit the brakes, obviously you're holding the pressure, you trail off, and you just kind of feel like that back end kind of kicks out a little bit as you kind of turn in. You can see right there, I have that little bit of like, as I turn in initially, I had that little bit of like neutral steer slash oversteer on the entry, and that's that feeling of just it feels like it's just the car's just guiding through the apex almost in a way. Now I think the big difference between you and I here is just pretty much braking points, to be honest with you, and once again quite a hard spot to pick out a proper braking marker. But in comparison to one another, I mean, you're braking about, how far is this? It's about 56 to pretty much 65. So yeah, 9 meters really. Yeah, 9 meters really is the difference there. So from where I go and initially hit the brakes just about now, so you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, basically there. That's what we're doing. So yeah, very, very small difference almost in a way. But again, you kind of sit here and you say, well, where the hell is a marker? If there's anywhere I could tell you to use, it would be this tree on the left-hand side. That's practically your only marker you have. So you can see there's this end of the tree here. There's a gap in between this tree to the next, and then there's a gap between this tree and the next. It's pretty much just as this big bush of trees on the here on the left end. So just about there, brake, right? So when that gap fulfills right there, you got to be in the brakes in this section, pretty much in a way. That's kind of where you want to be. And then of course, as we said, you peak, you hold, you down one gear, obviously drop the brakes as you obviously rotate, trail it in, apex, and kind of off you go. And that's pretty much sort of the fact there. So, I mean, yeah, naturally, you broke later. Of course, you broke harder. You picked up the power very, very well in your situation. There was a little bit of hesitation. Maybe we're just getting back to full throttle. But it's kind of that case again, right? Like, you did brake later. You carried more speed in. Of course, you washed your minimum speed off a lot later. So you can see that again, your minimum speed was dropped off, at around pretty much where you're getting on the power was where your minimum speed pretty much came around. I mean, you could see where you just about got back to full throttle. That was your slowest part of the section. Just as you got to 96% throttle, that was the slowest part of your corner. Whereas you can see my slowest part of the corner is pretty much just as I initially start the brake. So 7.3 kilometers an hour difference is where, obviously my slowest point is in comparison to you. So again, your fastest point is at the start. Your slowest point is at the end. Whereas my slowest point is at the start and my fastest point is at the end, right? So we basically have the approach completely back to front. And it's a similar case of what we just talked about with the previous corners as well. You're carrying more speed in, you're carrying less speed out. I'm carrying less speed in, I'm carrying more speed out. And again, I mean, we think of the track map, I mean, everything ends up onto a straight realistically, doesn't it? So, I think that's the biggest thing. But look, what's your comments with this corner on your end? How do you, excuse me, how do you feel about this one here on your side of things?
Yeah, this corner is a nightmare. And the
Yeah,
reason why it's a nightmare is because there is as we're seeing now, there's a straight line that you have to go
yeah,
through, but
yeah,
the
yeah,
sausages are so tight that if you go
yeah,
like 20 centimeters, like if you go 1 foot off the line, you're gonna like
yeah,
just completely lose balance of the car, and
exactly.
you're like
Yeah,
it's complete garbage, and then you lose a lot of time. I think that's my
yeah,
biggest
yeah.
thing.
Okay.
I'm seeing like your braking markers, and I think the second
Yeah.
time that like I'm losing a lot of time because I'm going harder on the brakes. So definitely
Yes.
something for me
Yes.
to put on the back of my mind as well. Like whenever I'm struggling somewhere, maybe going like
Yes.
less and earlier and see.
Yes.
But to be
Yes.
honest, like I started braking at the kink that you see like the white kink there. That
Yeah.
was
The
the
white kink.
first,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I
Yeah.
just
Wow.
blow through, yeah. And then
Yeah.
I
You got
started
to.
like pushing back, like bringing back, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
brought back by a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. It's a
But
big
there's
amount.
still more
Yeah.
to bring back, so that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So, look, I think as we've learned so well, right? I think the biggest philosophy with iRacing is that the earlier you can brake, the softer you can brake, the faster you go. Obviously, within reason. Of course, you can't brake 5,000 meters early and brake at 2%. Obviously, that's not gonna, that's obviously not gonna do anything there. But obviously, yeah, the earlier you can go and the softer you can brake in relevance to the corner, the better that it's kind of going to be as you kind of trying to find that extra little bit of time. So yeah, I think a really easy fix for you here, in all honesty, man. Like I genuinely think if you just bring the pressure back, and bring the pressure down, sorry, and bring the braking marker back, I think that's really what's going to be the big helping hand, almost in a way. But in terms of actual pressures, I mean, when we look at the difference as we sort of saw there, yeah, your peak pressure really here is 55 and my peak pressure is 45. So it's basically 10% on the mark. 9.45%, as you can see there, is the difference between you and I, and that's genuinely it, right? So that's what we kind of need to try and just think about more so than not, and try and maximize, just that braking marker. Of course, like I said, just end of that little tree there on the left. That's where you kind of want to brake, bring the pressure down. But again, we have to say, realistically, looking at the trace, it's absolutely sublime. Like there's nothing I could say there to do differently. Honestly, is tin top perfect. The way you get off the throttle, the way you get on the brake, the way you hold the peak, the way you trail off the peak, and the aggression that you have back on the power. You did it there. To be honest, the aggression you had on the power was even probably better than myself, in all fairness. But it's probably more so for the fact of at that point you're carrying so much less speed that you can probably give it a little bit more aggression than I obviously can. But again, that's that little difference that you can kind of feel there. But again, for me, I don't have any halts. You know, I'm always going upwards. There's no kind of retractment of the throttle, and that's again the main topic that we've talked about for quite a while now. You don't want to have any retractments on the throttle, which I haven't seen a single time through this lap, which is great. So that's all fine. Look, a little change there. And I think a big difference that you'll find, nearly 2/10 of a second realistically through here, which is pretty much 3/4 of your lap that's gone through this chicane, and validly so. I mean, this is the easiest part to lose the time, really. But yeah, I think a very simple fix for us to find that time back. And then obviously, yeah, the final two corners. So, again, these ones are always quite tough. So a bit of the same situation of what we talked about with 1, 2, 3, and 4. So just seeing how, maybe here again, maybe we just didn't hold the brake for long enough and you tried to kind of trail off just a little. So you see how you get to the peak, you skip that kind of back end of the braking there and you just start to trail off a little bit. And of course, yeah, it allows you to get on the power very early, but see then how you're having to linger for a really, really long time because you feel like you're just understeering a little bit. So as you can see here, just look at that there. See how you've just, 40, I've got 1 degree of steering in and you've got 45 degrees of steering in. So, you can see that just because maybe you trailed off the brake a little bit too soon, you've caused yourself to have a little bit of understeer. And then obviously you're just trying to fight that understeer almost all the way through. But again, a hard spot for figuring out a braking marker. But I think, you're there or thereabouts in the right spot, which is obviously good. So you can see, yeah, I mean, really, I mean, to me, it's bloody hard to pick a point here. It's so annoying. I mean, why they can't put braking boards here, I don't understand. But I think you've got the marker pretty much thereabouts. You feel where it is the more laps you do. But yeah, you can just see like see how I just not really have any understeer. It's just nice and smooth. But you can see how it's just like, yeah, I get into the brake right here. I hold the peak for a little bit longer, trail off, and then I sort of power on, right? So as I drop the brake pretty much right about now, this is where I get that four-wheel rotation. And you can kind of see it a little bit, right? You can see how when I drop the brake, it kind of just pitches into the corner. That's the feeling that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You're getting that by dropping it earlier, but you're not getting all the other rewards of actually getting the car to rotate, So the idea's there, the philosophy's there. It's just the approach that we kind of got to have to get more out of it. We've just got to slightly tinker with that to get a little bit more. So I think, yeah, very, very minor change there. Again, probably with a big benefit on your end, but something to just think about. And then the final corner, yeah, I think here we just probably, yeah, honestly, again, the values like this is barely like is it really even worth making a big sort of change? But again, it's the little things that can always make the biggest difference. But I think here once again, very, very difficult to pick out a braking point. Again, you're just kind of feeling where the kind of marker is, but again, it's always going to be different just depending on the amount of speed that you kind of have coming through there. But yeah, you would have had a really nice run out of there with how aggressive you could get back on the throttle on the exit, and you can see, look, you get a really nice run coming out. But yeah, you broke earlier, you broke softer. That was actually a really nice trail, to be honest with you. That was actually better than mine, in my opinion. And you could see you could, even with the way you were doing it, you could get back to full throttle really, really good, and kind of off you go. So, that's obviously great. I mean, when we look at corners like this, that trace there, right? You look at that trace right there that you did in the red. If you look at that and then look how I do it in the blue, you see how that's very similar to what
Yeah.
you're doing there. That's how you kind of need to do it into a corner like this, just extend it out. And then when you look at a corner like this, it's obviously a little bit different in a way, but you can still see it's just about holding that peak for a little bit longer. So you can see corners like this, you want to apply the same approach to corners like this. And then obviously corners like this, it's kind of more so like this. And then of course T6 is almost a little bit of an addition to this, but just obviously a lot shorter of a peak, almost in a way, right? So yeah, look, Alan, I think really great today, man. I mean, again, this is the closest we've ever been, and I think, after you make these changes, I wouldn't be surprised if we're doing the exact same lap times. So I'm very excited for you to give this week a go at Lime Rock, because the racing is always quite fun, and I think you will be able to have a really, really good week around Lime Rock. I mean, it's always super good when you got the pace on your hand, because especially in these cars, like if you have the pace around here, you can just gut the field. Like it's one of the cars around here where you can actually pull away if you've just got more speeds than someone else. Because yeah, of course, these cars have slipstream, but again, the slipstream isn't exactly the most strong thing in the world, especially with the types of corners you're dealing with here, where they are so stop-start in a way. Um, But I think the biggest thing is just really trying to make sure that we focus on all those little things. So yeah, I mean, look, how do you feel? What's your thoughts? Any comments? Any queries? Or does that all kind of make sense to you pretty well there? What we need to go away and work on.
No, everything makes sense. I think like you gave me a couple of things, and it's in the topic of brake efficiency, which we've been talking about for some weeks. I'm really
Yeah,
happy to see like how close we're getting in terms of behavior, or like
yeah,
I'm getting to you, right? In terms of behavior, and there's still like
yeah,
some things to work on. And they like
of course.
as we're talking, I'm thinking about how to implement, and I have ideas, which is good. And
Yeah,
this is gonna be interesting. Let's just hope we don't have like 15 cars crash in turn one. That's gonna be a good start, and then
yeah, yeah.
then we see what happens.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. No, look, like I said, I think you have a really good week here, honestly, man. I mean, if you've got this speed already by, literally not even looking at telemetry, not even looking at a lap, you did one session pretty much and got down to this time. Going away now, I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the week you do a faster time than me, pretty much, because it's really just super super small values, or even not even beat your time, but at least get in within that 0.1%. That's exactly where you kind of want to be. So I think, yeah, look, we're finding the sort of we're finding all those little bits, and this is where it kind of always gets the tough part, is really trying to find all those little things, because you said it once before, but at the beginning there was a lot more sort of low hanging fruits, but now kind of we're dealing with all the kind of the higher stuff that's a lot more difficult to kind of find and to kind of adjust to. But again, that's when it starts to come down to really just saying, okay, how can we maximize this corner more? How can we make braking points slightly better? And that's the biggest thing. So yeah, look, I think give us a couple more weeks of doing it like this. I think you'll definitely kind of find the gist. Of course, going through the tracks every week, especially the new ones, is going to be important for us. But there's a couple tracks we probably touched base on last season that maybe we can try and say, okay, how's the racecraft looking? And of course, just naturally everywhere, just starting to fit in a little bit of racecraft conversation everywhere, so that when you go into the week, you're kind of prepared. Oh, okay, if I go through this corner, this is the situations I can have ahead, behind, and around, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, man. Look, I think really, really good. I think, yeah, obviously amazing work there. And then, yeah, I don't even know where we'll be at for this sort of series next week, but we'll figure out pretty quickly, I suppose. Let's see quickly and see where we're actually at. I don't actually know yet. I've probably already done it, but I've probably completely forgot. So Summit Point, and then, oh, okay. So it'll be Lime Rock and then Okayama. So that'll be a
Okay.
cool one. So of course went to Okayama, so it'll be good to go back there and see where we get to. And then, yeah, pretty much from that point onwards, the rest of the season, we're pretty much, other than Winton, which is the last week, we're doing a new track every single week. So it'll be good to see how
With
we
the Norton
adapt to
Park as
everything
well,
there.
the Fosters.
Oh,
Yeah.
Alton Park Fosters. That's right. Yes, yes, correct. So yeah, that's interesting. They've got Alton Park back to back. So you got the Fosters, and then straight after the Fosters, you got the International. I've never seen that before, but iRacing doing its interesting things. So yeah, no,
Yep.
it'll be good, man. So no, very very happy. Go away, give that a try. And yeah, good luck in your racing for the rest of the week. And yeah, of course, happy Easter to you as well for the weekend.
Yeah.
And hope
Happy
you
Easter.
have a nice
Thanks.
day. Thank
Thanks
you.
for everything. I think they got rid of the Summit Point Jeff from circuit this season
Yes,
because everybody
yes, they
hated
did.
it, and they put like
Yeah,
Alton Park because people like. So I think was a good move.
yes. Yeah, no, for sure. Well, at least you have 2 weeks in a row to do Alton, which will be
Yeah.
cool, because you'll be very experienced with the Fosters, and then you just got to go and add on the rest of the sort of circuit at the back, and then obviously, yeah, you'll be quite good. But I think, again, the main corners where time can be gained or lost, with the Fosters version, are there, so you'll be able to practice them, and then going into the full version, you'll have those already down packed. I mean, T1 in the last corner and the second last double right is always ones that come to mind as easy time losers. So those will be good to already have fine tuned, and then it's just about getting the chicanes right. So yeah, man, look, go away, see how you go. Good luck with your racing, and yeah, I'm interested to see how you get on with this place next week. But yeah, look, as always, any questions, you let me know, and we'll touch base same time next week.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Perfect. No worries, bro. You have a good rest of the week. I'll see you next time. Thank you
Thank you
so much,
too.
man.
Bye bye.
See you, bro. Good night. Bye. Bye.
All right. Okay. We're getting better. We're getting better. We're sucking less and less, which is great news. So a couple of things for us to work on, which is good, and we are gonna work on them right now. One of the best things we've done was getting exactly the same track conditions because it's so much better to compare when we have those, both the pace and the braking markers. because now like the grip he's feeling is the same grip I'm feeling. And if I'm not trusting it, it's because I should trust it. It's not because it's not there. But I think for turn 1 and 2, we're very close. Turn 3, 4, we have some there. Then turn 5, 6, and 7, we have a lot. And then 8 and 9, we're super, super close. So the idea, we have like another maybe hour here or so. We're gonna go to the track, and we were gonna someone else hear something. I just realized I have to put the chat here. You can send me the file like on Discord. You can ping me on Discord if you want. Let me put the speed chat here so I can hear you guys. I take it out during the session because it's hard to hear people talking in the background. But hey, Evan, welcome back to our stream. If you wanna send it, you can send like on Discord, and you can either like just send directly to me, or if you wanna send like in any of the channels, just tag me and I'll see it. I'm wondering which track, like, is there a Formula 4 car? You wanna share for Friday, for tomorrow? I would really appreciate it, because I have to learn that car. But now here we are. So, it's gonna tell me I didn't exit the pit safely. So let's just... Alright, now we did. So this is one that I was telling him, like, it's a funny one because you trail brake, like very little brake for a long time, and the track wants to push you out. And here we talked about like right here, low, and then he did like very tightly, and then like here, which opened up, and then just lift a bit. He didn't touch the curb here, went on the gas, and I'm just trying to find the line, right? Here was the last tree there. Open up here. This is a very nice way of doing this corner as well.
Out the course. You've got
Don't
to
do
play
this
in
at
and give
home.
up that time.
But you see how tough it is. And then here, like, there's absolutely no braking marker. I'm using the yellow marker here, and he was braking slightly earlier than I was. So let me put the active reset button here. Let's see what we can do. Like you see, I'm going super late on the gas. Using a lot of the front wheels. We're still far from where we're gonna be, okay? But that's our first fast lap, so let's have some empathy here. It wasn't as garbage as it could have been. We used less of our steering wheel, but not quite 1%. Like this last corner here, you can do like with the pedals only. You don't have to turn it on. So you know, one thing that he told me to do and I'm not doing is actually using caps. So let's use caps. Let me do one thing here real quick, and hopefully that's gonna work. So what's going on here? Driver inputs. Let's just have the graph. Okay. And then let's save this. How can I save this? Do I have to save this? Alright, cool. So here we save it. And then I'm gonna open caps. And on caps, I'm gonna use the pedals. Gear speed. I don't know, pedals, wheel. So now we have it all. Right or wrong? Right. So where's caps? Come on. Okay. We put the overlay here. Okay, here you are. But I want to change the position, and I completely forgot how I... No. Okay, here we go. We're gonna do like this. So now we have the percentage just next to our reference here. Okay, let's see how that works for us. Uh-oh. Maybe not, right? What do you guys think about this line? I think it's like racing line.
Kick out the course. You've got to slow down and give up that time.
You just... It's what they teach. You have to get the corners and make them flat, right? So... Let's go again. It's like gently on the gas. And there is not a lot. Oh, too late. That's where my previous braking marker was. I didn't pull in enough.
Avon Barksdale.
Not
Said.
ideal.
Okay, I think I sent it 30 seconds.
Alright, let me see here. Yeah. You sent it. What track is that? Insane start. Okay, I'll watch in a second. Let's watch now, because I want to see like the... Oh, I don't want to leave this though. Can I watch the replay while the sim is playing? That's a good question. Because I don't want to lose my active reset. Let me watch in a second. Let me just put a few more laps here. I was thinking about something. What was it? So fast here, percentage, brake. I don't know. Give me 1 second. My brain is frying here, I don't know why. So you see like how we had like 50% less lap in way less this time? I'm pretty sure that's not the best way. Now you got me curious, man. Now you got me curious. I'm too curious to not watch what we're talking about. Sorry, guys. We're gonna be back to this track in a second, I promise you. But I got something called Insane Start. I gotta see it. Let me download it. Once it's downloaded, I'm gonna bring to the replay folder. Get off here. Downloads. Can I double click it? No, I can't. Just escape. So you have no idea how many thumbnails I have on my download section. And then we're looking for documents, iRacing, replays, Insane Start. What car is that? And this international one. I kind of like Foster's more.
Avon Barksdale. Said. Porsche GT3 992.
Okay, okay. The Porsche. You guys have no idea how many replays I have saved here. Report, report, races. Oh, it's raining. Okay, that's never fun. So it's a rolling start. GT3. That,
Avon Barksdale.
what could possibly go wrong,
said,
right?
Been running the Rainmaster this week, loving it.
And you are like P what here? Oh, good start. Good start. Good start. Auto.
Avon Barksdale said,
Damn.
13.
And up to P5. That was a great start. I see what you're saying. Were you just lucky, or did you have a strategy here? Did you see the gap and you went for it? Because people open up here and you just go for the gap.
Avon Barksdale said, finished P5 2000 soft.
Jeez. Good stuff, man. Congratulations. Very good start. Very good start.
Avon Barksdale said, I had to share with someone, I just timed it perfectly and the sea parted.
That's insane. That's insane. Because like also everything opened up for you, which makes it even more fun. Oh, I remember what I opened was the ABS not working, and the wheels also not working. Yeah, you see, like, help me remember what I had to remember. That was a great start. When I was running GT4s, I had awful starts, and sometimes a decent one, but usually like just awful starts. Hard, like these rolling starts are hard sometimes, but you are able to keep the feel. Like, it's easy to have a good start, it's hard to keep it. I'm glad you did, and I love like you're racing the rain. That's something I'll have to do like sometime this year, get better at the rain. I have a couple of goals, life goals here, like Nürburgring is one, and rain, not together.
Really,
though.
I said just me. Said, they were looking for vision through the rain, so staggered.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny though because they like open a triangle, right? And that just gave him the perfect spot to hit the brakes or hit the gas and
Avon Barksdale
go for it.
said, the starts aligned for sure.
You know what? We take those when we can take those, right?
Avon Barksdale said, stars.
It's not like it happens every day for us, so good start, man. Congratulations. Congratulations, man. And it's great result. Great result. No, I'm losing time right now for... And I didn't put like the active reset. Ah, I'm so silly. I don't know, maybe I hit the grass because I got distracted. So I don't know if you guys follow Suelio Almeida. I think everybody follows him. But he has a video about saying like you cannot prevent what you cannot induce what you cannot prevent, and he's talking about like understeer and oversteering. That's how he's been training people now. And apparently I
Pick up
cannot
that
prevent.
corner and got a slow down penalty.
Come on, man. Like, do you really think I'm gaining time here? Alright, so our best is a 791, I think. 7791. I think we can do better than that today. By today, I mean like right now. So slightly later on the brakes. Active reset. Hesitation. It's okay. We had some hesitation, but it's okay. We're building it up, right? Not enough brake. Not enough braking. It cost me enough track, but I didn't get a black flag, so... We have to do this corner with like minimal input. Like this one. Like this one is... Look at the steering wheel. It's barely. I probably go like 10 degrees max. Yeah, we did hit them. Putting the session best lap on my left side here. Not enough on the brakes. So maybe a bit harder, 50%. What's going on? Like, it has to be 50%, so let's go to 50%. I think I'm trailing the brake too early here. Let's hold for longer. We talked about this, right?
Craig Walter said he was braking at the 4 and less pressure.
But I think I'm already putting less pressure than I was putting before. Let me see VRS. Let's see VRS. Like we have telemetry. Let's look at telemetry, right? So here's VRS. Teams. We're gonna look at Gianni. And then I have to find him here. I wish this was like in alphabetical order. It's not. So let's open his. And we're gonna find the car and the track. Formula V, I'm so sorry for him having to drive a Formula V. Industriesleben. Here. Line session. His fastest. Our fastest. And that's gonna be from... Let's just use today, right? Do I have a lap? I have this one. Okay. Because what we really want to see is his lap. So actually turns 1 and 2 are doing exactly the same thing. Three and 4 can still go early on the brakes. So here's same brake pressure. He's going to 47. I'm going to 50, right? Okay, so it's he peaks at 47. We're gonna do 47. We're gonna harder, like faster to 47, hold, and everything should fall in place. It's funny because here he shows the delta, and mine I don't know how to change this. Like here the chart, his chart shows the delta, mine shows the absolute speed. Anyways, alright, so turns 3 and 4. His... Okay, that's the end of 1 and 2. Still braking earlier than I am with less brake pressure, that's the 30%. We went from 50 or 40 to 35, so good job. but you have to go down to 27. Let's focus on those. So it's 47, right? Ish. Faster to 47 and then like 27, okay. Uh-oh. Like you see, we gotta find a 47 now in the muscle memory here. Almost. A bit more aggressive. Nope. This is, by the way, complete garbage, okay? Let me just put this was 27. Let me just put like a few fast laps here so we can get a baseline, because right now I'm trying to hit something without warming up. It's just like running, jogging without any warm up. Barely using the steering wheel here. Same here. All right, let's put a few laps here. 47% here. Uh-oh. We definitely didn't want to. Remember, our fast lap here is still like complete garbage, so don't get too excited. Too early on the brakes there, or too much on the brakes. We almost parked the car. Alright. Like hitting the curb there is a bad idea. Felt like I was gonna lose the car, but I didn't, so we'll take it. Not a good exit.
New fastest lap for you.
Almost. You see like the 2-3% that I didn't use cost me the corner. So funny. And if the ABS kicks in too much, that's just no bueno. What's going on here? Because like we're braking. Let's brake a little bit earlier. Uh-oh. That was late, that was late, that was late. We're gaining time, but that was not good. Alright. Not that bad.
That was your fastest lap of the session.
I feel like it's taking me too long to get to the peak of brake pressure there. Uh-oh. No. So this second sector was complete garbage, so let's just restart it. Good, it's good. Trail. Slightly too aggressive on the gas. So what's going on here? Are we going to brake too early there? No, let's go more aggressive here, okay? Okay. It's like fast out. That was fast out. Yeah. This corner, man, this corner.
You cut that corner and got a slow down penalty.
Maybe I have to set like an active reset just for this corner. But first I need to get the corner one, like turn one as well, so we still need to go around the track. Let's take the delta out. Because if anything, that's very distracting. And we want to focus more on our inputs than on that right now. I do feel like he had a tighter exit, so maybe hold the brakes for just a bit, go slightly deeper. I overslowed down here. hesitation. Never good. So one of the things I have to work on is go to the peak pressure faster. That's what's going to make the difference here. This felt good. I don't know if it was good, it felt good. Turn into late, turn into late. Not quite, but I feel like that's what we have to do, just more intentionally and with better control. So. I'm also trying to practice what I'm looking at. Too much. Let's just finish this. Oh, off track. No, I saved it, but for a hot lap, it doesn't quite work like that. Sometimes I just get like super bad everywhere. That sucks. Whenever trying to save, it's because it's a hot lap, it's not a race, but whenever trying to save, never go full on gas. It's not gonna work out well for you. Okay. I don't know if that's it, but it felt like it was the right thing to do. I'm going too early on the brakes, I feel like. This is feeling fast. Kinda missed the apex there. Oh, there was no rotation. Ay, ay, ay. Let's keep trying. I did pump the brakes there. I should have not done that. Alright, no sausages, no sausages.
New fast lap for you.
That was indeed like a good one. No, don't get a... We didn't get 1x, but we slowed down a lot. Alright. Let me...
You cut that corner and got a slowdown penalty.
Alright. I want to see my op mode.
It looks like you've got some engine trouble. You've probably lost some power.
Alright. Yeah, that just unsettles the car too much. Extra rotation, just go to the grass. It's gonna grant you the extra rotation you're looking for. Let's go through it. Let's be a shot like this. It's hard. We're chasing like those final It feels like if we lose momentum, which we did. We have 15 more minutes. We're gonna do it. Like this damn understeer that happened in my fastest lap. Alright, so let's think. We're trying to impress Max Verstappen here. Let's go for it. Forget about everything, just look to the track. I think that's a late turning. Garbage. The delta is only helpful when it helps, right? If it's distracting, let's just remove it. Let's go. I tried to have this rotation, it was too much.
They say you cut the cord. You'll have to slow down and give up the time gain.
Maybe I have to redo it. Okay. Not gonna lie, like a whole lot of steering wheel here. I do have to practice that sector because like racers are gonna be lost on that sector. Let me see one thing on his fast lap. Turn 1 and 2. And of course VRS is all wrong. So we go on the brakes. That's the second part. I want the first part. Yeah. There is like a slight bump here on the brakes. Right? There is a slight bump here. But that's towards the first apex, not the second. Okay. We'll try like 3 or 4 fast laps here, maybe more. Over slowing down here. Alright, no deltas, no nothing. 5 laps. Let's do 5 laps. Oh, I got an off track. Doesn't matter. We'll keep pushing. We gotta get in a rhythm here. I'm trying to go as early as he goes in that braking zone. And focus on using more of the 4 tires. Like this, like here we're sliding and going sideways. 4 more laps. That's all we have. Too much brakes, too much like a front wheels being used. Like this is more of a slide, you see? Which allows us this nice and beautiful entry angle there. Even over slowing down, I cannot be able to do this. Grind, grind, grind. Grind, grind, grind. Let's go. Let's just keep pushing. Still a lot of front wheel here. We're only gonna be able to make it once we figure out like this one. Some laps we figure out, some laps we miss. Wasn't bad. Not quite. I have 2 more laps. 2 more laps tonight. We're almost all or nothing here. Because at some point you just stop improving, right? There's no point. When you hit a plateau, you have to rest. That's how I feel. Pump. Hold, hold, hold. Where's the slide? There we go. We found the slide at the very end. It's better, it's worse, I don't know. Here's a slide, yeah. Keep focused, keep focused. Early here. Wasn't any good at least.
You've got wheel damage. Looks like one of your wheels is out of alignment.
It
You'll have
was
less grip out
trash.
there.
One last time, just one last time. Nope, nope. There's way more rotation in this one. Open up too much. It's gonna cost us some time. Not enough track. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna do one more. We'll go on my older braking marker. Garbage. I don't want to put like one fast lap, just one. There you go. Too much oversteer. Pushing, just keep pushing, just keep pushing. Last one, I promise. I promise last one. But it has to be perfect. So let's focus on perfection here. This is not perfect. Come on, come on. Later, later, later. Turning later. Too late? Yes. Earlier?
Walter said, I cannot figure this track out, I am stuck in the 59s.
59s? But like what track conditions? That changes a lot. My track conditions are, like if you're not comparing the same ones, doesn't matter. Like static weather, okay, 70 Fahrenheit, 9 miles an hour west, 53% humidity. You put no track moisture, partially cloud. Then on the right side, you pick April 11, 2026, 1 p.m. and then 0%. So I'll leave here for a second if you want to pause. Just put like these same track conditions. And then you do a fast lap. And then you're going to see like realistically, you might be like much closer than you think. You might just have like a complete piece of garbage track.
Craig Walter said, he'll try that tomorrow night.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know in the Discord. Okay, today's really not my day. One more. It's midnight already. Yeah, one more. One more and we'll say goodbye, okay? Let's take all the references that we have here for... Do that out. And that's the last one. Remove from the steering wheel.
Craig Walter said, I did find time by going to second at the chicane, it digs up the hill better.
You might be
Craig
slowing down
Walter
too much.
said, but it could be because I am just going slower, lol.
Yes, likely the case. Because I tried it yesterday, going second, and it was just like slowing down too much. Alright, what lap time that's gonna yield? I don't know. It was a complete piece of garbage. 58.55, it's fine. It is fine. It is fine.
Your car is leaking fluid.
Oh, really? I think it's good to drive. Alright guys, so today we had a coaching session. We saw some things that we have to work on. We completely and miserably failed working on them right now, but at least it's more intentional. So I'll have empathy with myself.
Craig Walter
We're still
said,
off.
if I could get to 58.5 I would be thrilled lol.
Man, it could be the track, like I'm telling you, could be the track conditions. Tomorrow, like just get the same ones and see, you might be there. Like, it would not surprise me. Like, you are not much slower than I am. Like, we are not that different. So on this track, if I can do like a 58 consistently, and you are within 1% of me, which is a lot, you're gonna be in the 58.5. I think we're much closer than this, and I think I can do better than this. So that's like an average pace race. Like maybe you're gonna be within this, but it wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow you are like 58.2, and that's like your best, doing your best, and that's still like Gianni is 57. I think it's 5.84, right? And if you are at a 58.2, you are 1%. Like, you are, like, it's zero surprises. Zero surprises. Can guarantee your track sucks right now. Tomorrow, we're going to be back 10 p.m. Eastern for some racing, for some good racing. We're going to be doing the Formula Force, the FIA Force, F-Force. FIA F-Force. Could have an easier name, right? Formula Force, I think, is just better. And then they are racing tomorrow at Barber. I like this track. I love this track. I raced here in real life. So we race here in week 13 with the GT4 as well. So let's see how that's gonna go. All right. So it's super late. I gotta go. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and you join our Discord server.